So our panelists are Alexa Brown, Nicole Sherry, Leah Withrow, and we're going to hear about groundskeepers today. And Megan Kruger will be moderating. So Alexa Brown is a native of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and currently teaches U.S. history and world history at Jenks High School. In addition to her work in education, Alexa has been a member of the Tulsa Drillers grounds crew since 2020. The Drillers are the AA affiliate of the Los Angeles Dodgers. She also has experience working in field maintenance with the University of Oklahoma Athletics Department, where she helped maintain the fields for the university's nationally recognized football, softball, and baseball programs. In the summer of 2022, Alexa was selected for the prestigious Frank and Peggy Steele internship program at the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum, where she served as the education intern. When she's not in the classroom or on the field, Alexa enjoys following Major League Baseball, especially cheering on her favorite team, the New York Yankees. We also have Nicole Sherry. Oh, go ahead.
They're our rival. That's all.
Oh, gotcha. Sorry about that. We also have Nicole Sherry, who begins her second season as the Orioles Director of Field Operations after spending the previous 14 seasons as the Orioles Head Groundskeeper. From 2001 to 2003, she served as the Orioles Assistant Head Groundskeeper before spending 3 seasons, 2004 to 2006, with the AA Trenton Thunder, an affiliate of the New York Yankees. So she returned to the Orioles organization in November of 2006, becoming just the second woman ever to serve as the head groundskeeper with the major league team. Sherry and Heather Nabozny, who had been with the Detroit Tigers since 1999, are the only female head groundskeepers in Major League Baseball. Sherry was the first female head groundskeeper in the Eastern League history when she was named to that post for the Trenton Thunder in February of 2004. And in 2006, the Thunder honored her with a bobblehead depicting her riding a tractor. In February of 2016, Sherry was named the recipient of the Mary Pickersgill Award for Women's Leadership in Business by the Star-Spangled Banner Flag House. And the award honors a woman who demonstrates leadership in her community, exemplifies innovation in her chosen field, and has the power to inspire others. She was also named as the 2019 recipient of the prestigious Dick Erickson Founders Award, which is awarded annually to an STMA member who effectively manages sports fields and their facility, exhibits the qualities of a true team leader, and positively impacts the sports turf industry. A native of Newcastle, Delaware, Sherry graduated from the University of Delaware with a degree in agriculture. She worked for several golf courses in Delaware and with the University of Delaware's Research and Education Center, testing new herbicides prior to joining the Orioles in 2001. Sherry resides in Eldersburg, Maryland with her son, Tyson. And then we also have Leah Withrow. She's a young professional sports field manager who's been blazing her own trail in the industry. She graduated from North Dakota State University with a Bachelor of Science in Sports Field Management in 2018. And she spent the last 6 years working for the Reno Aces, the AAA affiliate of the Arizona Diamondbacks, 5 of which were as the head groundskeeper. The promotion in 2020 made her the youngest head groundskeeper in a AAA baseball and only one of 2 women to hold the title at that time. And while in Reno, her and her crew won Professional Baseball Field of the Year in 2023. And Withrow received Sports Field Magazine Rising Star Award in 2024 and had a 2-part article in Forbes. She now currently works for the Arizona State University Athletics as an assistant field manager that helps oversee 25 acres of athletic fields for multiple sports. So as you can see, we have women with a lot of experience, a lot of awards. So welcome, and I will hand that off to Megan.
Wonderful. Well, it's very nice to see you all, especially Nicole and Leah, who I know is good friends. And Alexa, I'm very excited to welcome you into that group as well. I host a podcast called the Groundskeeper Chat Series, and it is for the love of groundskeeping. Sports turf is another term that we use for our industry. And I've had both Leah and Nicole on the podcast before, and we really just love to highlight the uniqueness of this industry, the niche, all the niche characteristics that come with a job like this. So I'm kind of going to just run this panel like I would an episode. And as Leah and Nicole know, I always start every episode asking for the turf origin story. So this is like, how the heck did this career come on your radar? As you guys heard, like, women in this industry, there's so few of them in sports turf. But really, if we look at sports turf as a whole, when we think of the amount of people that are interested in the outdoors and sports and, kind of working with their hands, it's crazy that our industry is still, relatively small. So it always is like a happy accident or a crazy journey how people come to sports turf. So that's how I always start every podcast is, to give us the turf origin story. And Alexa, I'll give you some extra time to formulate yours, but since Nicole has done this a few times with me, I'll task her to give us that turf origin story. Really, how did this career come on your radar? And really, most importantly, was there a key moment when you were like, "Oh, I can make this a career. Like I can do this, as my life's passion."
Yeah, thanks for having me, everybody. When I was going through university, I was interested in studying agriculture. I loved the fascination. I had a really big fascination with plants, what made them grow, what they were resistant to, what kind of resiliency they developed with everything that we do to them on a daily basis. So in that career path, we had a few classes on turf grass management. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. Grass, we take it for granted every single day. We're beating it up, cutting it, mowing it, running on it, playing on it. So I kind of dove into that kind of side of the industry. And I worked on a golf course and I loved it. But at that time in my life, I didn't want to be up at 4 a.m. and in bed by 7. And decided that maybe this isn't what I want to do. So for one of my classes, it was an irrigation class. We took a field trip to Camden Yards. And that's when I was like, wow, you can really do turf grass management at a professional level. And then I just was interested in seeing if there were any internship availabilities. And I was offered an internship later that year. Got into the field, still questioned whether I wanted to pursue this or not, but eventually I was like, you know what? This is something I love. I love baseball. I love the game. And to be able to do like the major that I was focusing on for the last 3 years in this kind of industry, I was like, yeah, this is definitely what I want to do.
A no-brainer.
Yeah.
And you've had such great success. What would pull you out at this point, truly? I mean, your career is one that I am sure a lot of, not just women, but other aspiring groundskeepers look to and say to have something like that at the end of the day would be pretty incredible.
It
So
is incredible. I mean, I think I walk away every day with a satisfaction of feeling, my team and I helped contribute, the wins and losses to our professional team. I think anything that pulls me out would be more research in turf grass science or management, and maybe more STEM programs for kids to get them involved. That, the STEM is a wide range of different things, and follow your passion. And if people love sports, this could be an avenue to take.
I love that. Yep, that's one of our main taglines with our Sports Field Managers Association is stay in the game. It's, a way for people that grew up loving playing sports or being a fan of sports. A career in sports turf is really that, avenue to stay in the game, stay as close to it as you possibly can. So thank you, Nicole. Leah, I'll toss it over to you next. You have a very interesting turf origin story because unlike a lot of people, this was on your radar from a very young age. So really share that with the group.
Yeah, I was a senior in high school, trying to figure out what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And I had toured a bunch of colleges, and I have family up in Fargo, North Dakota. And so we were visiting them, and we went to tour North Dakota State. And originally, I was touring for their engineering department. Any of those aptitude tests they make you take in high school, I always tested for like an engineer side just because my brain loves puzzles and I was always super good at math. I was always in the highest level math classes. And so that's where I was leaning. And while I was touring North Dakota State, I saw they had sports field management as a major. And I was like, that's different. I've never heard of that. And I love being outside. I grew up outside of Lake Tahoe. So hiking, fishing, camping, all of that stuff was way up my alley. I loved being outside, working with my hands. I knew I wasn't made for a desk job. And so like the engineering aspect of it, or the sports field management aspect of it, gave me something to physically do with my hands and not just sit at a desk all day. And so I was like, I'm here. I might as well go meet with the head of that department. So I met with the head of the sports field management department, and he kind of laid out like, you could be a golf course superintendent, you can run a park and rec district, you can go professional, you can do college athletics, you can do research, you can do sales. There's so many avenues to go once you have this degree. And so I thought about it, still on the engineer track. And then I took calculus senior year of high school and was like, well, this isn't going to work for 4 more years. There's no way I'm going to go to school for this. And kind of fell back on the sports field thing, was still in the back of my head, and just kind of had a good feeling that this was something I'd be good at. And my senior year spring break, we came down to Phoenix as a family. My grandparents were snowbirds down here, and I just went to the Diamondbacks comments and questions page, like just the most general on their website, and just said, I'm a senior in high school, I'm looking at getting into this. I would really like to speak to a professional before I decide to move halfway across the country to pursue this. I was wondering if your groundskeeper would let me shadow you for a couple days. And like within an hour, I had a response, and they're like, yeah, we would love for you to come out. Like Grant wants you to work a non-game day and a game day. And like, so on my spring break senior year, I went to work, and I went to Chase Field, and I walked down. Their shop is in their right field corner, and I walked down the ramp, and you walk into Chase Field. This is when it was real grass before they put the artificial turf in. And you see the mowers going, the roof is open, guys are working on the dirt. And it's just like one of those scenes that you're like, this is crazy that these people are just coming into work and this is their office. Like this is just an average Tuesday for them. And I'm walking into something amazing. And so that was kind of my aha moment. I was like, yeah, I could probably do this. And I went home that first day after washing wall pads and tamping clay and just exhausted. I wanted to go back the next day. I was like, I couldn't wait to go back. So I was like, if I'm this exhausted and still this excited about going to work the next day, then this is probably something I'd be good at.
Oh, I love that. I don't know if I've ever heard you describe your little stint at Chase Field. I don't think I'd ever heard that story. That's really sweet though. But, for everyone listening, that is something very innate in the groundskeeping industry, is our willingness to bring up the next generation. That's something that mentorship is like the backbone of groundskeeping. You're not going to learn a ton of the practical application from reading a textbook. You might learn a lot of the science elements from, the things that you would read in a classroom, but a lot of it is, finding a mentor or that first person that you work under really bringing you along in the industry. So, it doesn't surprise me that, Leah sent out a general, shot in the dark, like, hey, would anybody be willing to, help me decide if I want to make this career? And, hearing back within an hour, that's pretty true to a lot of people's groundskeeper origin stories. Like, if you reach out with the question, you'll typically have people bring you into the fold. Just in my experience, like, I joined this industry about 6 years ago, and I still don't think I could probably count on my hand the amount of times that people have, said no. And it wasn't even a no, but like a maybe later type situation. People are so willing to help out, and really, it's a innate part of our culture in the groundskeeping industry. So Alexa, I'll pass it over to you next for your turf origin story. How did this come on your radar, and when did you decide, like, oh, I could, like Leah said, come back tomorrow and do the same thing over again?
So it kind of came on my radar because I had a really bad summer job before I started working for the Drillers. So I was working for Vintage Stock, which was not really a good summer job. I wasn't enjoying it. And I've always loved baseball. And it kind of just came to me. It's like, why do I not work at the baseball field? So then I had a choice. I really didn't want to work in concessions. I didn't really want to be an usher. I wanted to do something at the baseball field that I felt like mattered, and I wanted to work hard and do something like that. So that's when I was like, well, maybe I can be on the grounds crew. And at the time, I really didn't know anything about it. Not really. It's not like I went to school for it. You know, I have a social studies education degree. So I really didn't know much about it. So I didn't even know that it would possibly be a big deal that I was a woman, you know, applying to even be on the grounds crew. So I went on the website and I was looking and I couldn't really find like information about it. So that's when I reached out to Gary Shepard and I kind of reached out to him personally and emailed him. I wasn't really expecting to get a response, but I was just asking him, you know, do you have a spot on the team for 2020? Because I would really like to, you know, be on the team. And he reached out to back out to me pretty fast and said that he wanted to set up an interview. And I interviewed for it. And then unfortunately, it was 2020, so COVID happened. But eventually I did work in 2020 because the Drillers did the Texas Collegiate League. But yeah, that's kind of how I fell into it. And like I said, at the time, I really didn't know that it would even be a big deal that I was a woman, you know, even applying to be on the team. I just thought surely, you know, they've had women in the past, but I was only the second woman to like ever apply and like be on the Drillers team, groundskeeping team. So that was pretty cool. But that is how I kind of fell into it.
Very cool. And so my next question is really to give everyone an idea of what a day in the life might look like. But I preface this question with, you know, no day in groundskeeping really looks the same. That's, you know, what a lot of people say is very attractive about the job is that when you come into the office, you could have, you know, a completely different challenge or obstacle or, you know, accomplishment than what you found yesterday. Because, you know, we have crazy moving factors like weather, obviously, but you also have a living, breathing surface that you're typically taking care of. So I guess I'll phrase this question. If each of you could describe your favorite, you know, what's your favorite day in the office and what does that look like? Is that game day? Is that paint day? Is that, you know, once the team's out of town and you guys are doing recovery? Describe to everyone what a day in the life looks like, but what that favorite day might be for you. And Alexa, I'll let you start with that one if you'd like.
So a favorite day of mine would probably be a game day, just because I work primarily in the summer. So most of the time for a game day, I would come in at like 10 o'clock. My primary job throughout the season is really cleaning the dugouts. Like that is like my main job. So I spend a lot of time cleaning the dugouts. We water the field before lunch. And then we get back from lunch. Another job of mine on game days is dragging the warning track, which I grew to love eventually. It took me some time to like get used to being on the John Deere, but that was like my primary job on a game day. Typical like game day stuff, set up for VP, put out all the mats. In the mornings, we normally do clay work, so I'll help with that. That was like a new thing that I wasn't used to, but eventually my boss, Gary Shepard, he started to let me help doing clay work. So either in the bullpens or on the mound or at home plate. Again, we might water again before the teams take BP. And then I would drag the infield on the John Deere again, which kind of took me some time to get used to. But I would drag the infield before they took ground balls and BP. And then typically just like setting up for game day, like a typical setup is kind of what a 10 o'clock day looks like for me.
Love that. And what's so cool about baseball and having a job in groundskeeping is baseball and is, you know, a football crew, they work all week, you know, to set the stage for kickoff. But a baseball crew, you're setting the stage almost 3 times on game day. You know, you're setting it for that first BP, and then you're resetting it for first pitch. And then, you know, we have our in-game, you know, resets where we come and make sure that everything is perfect. You know, you're setting the stage multiple times throughout the day. And, you know, that just presents a lot of unique opportunities for a groundskeeper. But Nicole, I'll pass it over to you to, you know, describe your day in the life.
Yeah, basically we start every day mowing in 2 different directions. That's the outfield and our infield surface. Then we move to the bullpens and complete the clay work in there. The night before, after a game, we try to get the field set completely perfect so that if, worst case scenario, you can still play a game on that surface if things don't go your way overnight. Then we work on our infield skin, which people call skin or dirt, getting that shaped for our infield work, which consists of grounders and catcher's defense, infield, outfield practice, and then setting everything up for batting practice. And then, like Alexa, getting ready for the game after that. After a game, we typically do everything. We'll fix the mound, we'll fix the plate, we'll get the infield ready to go. And then on just non-game days, we're doing all our agronomic things like aerating, fixing any divots that may have occurred during the season or during that homestand, trying to implement any fertilizers or pesticides into the field to prevent anything like disease, which is a big concern here in Maryland because we are in a transition zone. So we get very hot, humid summers, and just try to keep in the grass as healthy as possible.
And then Leah, I'll pass it over to you.
I mean, they basically covered it all. We have extremely long days on game days and extremely long days when the team's not in town. I always get, I bet you're so excited to get a break now that the team's out of town. And I'm like, no, we actually get to do what we've been wanting to do now that the team's out of town, or we're hosting a concert or an event of some sort. So there's always something to do at the ballpark is what I've always told assistants that want extra hours or something to do. I'm like, there's always something to do that has slipped through the cracks. Now that I'm at Arizona State University and we have multiple sports that we cover, same is true. There's always a sport in season. That's the new thing I have adjusted to from professional sports to college is even though they're seasonal, so like football's only played in the fall and softball's only played in the spring, they practice year round. They're never not on the field. They're practicing Monday through Friday in the off season, and then they're practicing Monday through Friday for games that weekend in season. So it's an ongoing thing. My boss calls it job security because players will always use the field and we'll always need to fix it.
I love that. And you kind of just touched on one of the main roles or purposes of the groundskeeper chat is to kind of combat some of those misconceptions. So many people will be like, oh, you're a sports turf manager, so you mow for a living? Or, what do you do in the winter when there's snow on the field? Or, what do you do, like Leah said, when the team is out of town? And the groundskeeper chat is really designed to allow audiences to hear what the actual job entails. And you quickly learn that there's really no off season for a groundskeeper. I think one of the first times I connected with Leah was when you were doing a field renovation in Reno. And your off season was rebuilding the entire field, but also all the legwork that goes into and was placed on your shoulders to find vendors, to find a construction crew, to manage that construction crew. And just like nobody would think that a sports turf manager is now, wearing a hard hat and managing a construction crew in their day-to-day job. So it's a job that can take on many different lives for sure. Okay, so my next question is, you have the misconceptions, you have the combating of that, but what is the most rewarding element of the job for each of you? What do you really think is the thing that gets you back there every day, especially in baseball and in college athletics? The days are long. Like there's no denying that. You're there long before, players show up, and you're there shutting everything down long after the fans clear out. So how do you keep that, momentum to come back season after season, day after day? Nicole, I'll let you start with that one.
I think for me personally, the play of the game, like how the groundskeeper's role really is integral in that play. I mean, every time that we are up and we're winning, or a ball gets hit to the infield and it makes a perfect hop. And, that's part of us helping the team with that. And then there's just so many different things that I can't pinpoint, but just seeing the professional athletes and giving them a surface that is impeccable is really something that we take a lot of pride in. So I think that keeps me coming back day after day. Just that strive to win, that strive to be part of the team. And hopefully we make playoffs and eventually a World Series. That would be, an amazing experience for us. Other than that, I really do just love the science of the grass. I love seeing all the things that it can go through, and then, it still looks amazing every single day. And that's a big attribution from, our staff.
I love that. And Nicole, you just touched on it a little bit, that there's such a rewarding element that you really are part of the team. Like you said it like in a synonymous term that, if we made playoffs or if we had a World Series, like, because you really are a part of that team and that family. And if you weren't there, that team may not make it there. I mean,
Yeah.
and I would even argue that they wouldn't, because
Right.
they need the conditions to be able to perform at an elite level. And what a cool opportunity that is, especially for people who grew up loving the sport or playing the sport. We often find that athletes who, go cold turkey, let's say, and leave sports, and find themselves in a different avenue. It's almost like a part, they don't have that camaraderie anymore, or they don't have that culture that they loved so much that surrounds a team. And a lot of groundskeepers will say that a crew really, is a replica of like a baseball team or a football team or whatever sport they may have grown up playing. To then join a crew, you still have like, those moments where you have to come together to, get the job done, win for the team. So I love that you said it in that, synonymous term that, as a crew, you're working towards the same things that the players and the coaches are.
Yeah, I do think that like a lot of people don't understand that like we're in constant communication with these athletes. Like if there's a
Yeah.
starter that likes their mound a certain way, we go out of our way to give that to them so that they can perform their best. Our infielders from third base all the way to first base, they like their surface in a different way. So we have to constantly adjust for what their needs are. We don't go too crazy, like, because it gets in their head and stuff. But,
Of
we do
course.
tailor our home field for our home team. And I think that's a pretty special component of what we do on a daily basis.
I love that. I was just down in Wichita with the Wichita Wind Surge, and they had a player who, before every game, likes to come and walk the whole field, and he has like a very specific route that he likes to take, and he likes to do it barefoot. And they explained that like it grounds him to the field and everything. It's part of his game day ritual. And of course, it's like right in the middle of their cultural practices that
Right.
they're trying to take care of. But they said, like, at the end of the day, we are in customer service, and the players, to some extent, are our customers, and we want to cater to whatever's going to make them succeed. And I just thought that was such a funny thing because, take aside the mound or different elements of the actual field that you could prepare for them, but now you're catering to their game day rituals. I thought that was really unique.
Yeah.
Alexa,
true.
I'll ask you that question next. What is the most rewarding element of the job that you have found?
I kind of agree. It is very rewarding to know that you like had a small part in the team's success. The days sometimes are, long. You might come in at 10 and not leave till 11, but to know that you were a small part of that is always really rewarding. And I'll speak on, the drillers themselves who are working at One Oak Field. I really think the people keep me coming back, whether it be like people that work in the front office or concessions or the ushers. I feel like I have a deeper appreciation for the game just because you really don't see what it takes to like run a team and have that team be successful. And I always say, besides like working in a high school, like I do full time, like working at a baseball field is like one of the most unique and beautiful work environments, because it's really everybody working together to make sure that the team is successful and they get what they need, and things are running smoothly. So I feel like that is the most rewarding part, and it keeps me going back to the field every day, and I'm excited every day that I get to do it. So
I love that. Thank you. And then Leah, last but not least, what is, you described it a little bit in what kind of sold you in onto the career. Sorry, my child is banging at the door screaming mom. I hope you guys can hear that. So it's very distracting. But Leah, what is your like rewarding element that, like Alexa said, keeps you coming back day in and day out?
I would double down on both what Nicole and Alexa said. It is definitely the people, because there's nobody else working your same hours and your same schedule that you're around as much. So it's really important to have people that you enjoy. And then it is very rewarding being a small piece of the game, a small, large piece, because as much as the front office would like to think that they could get a game ready if I just didn't show up to work one day, I just don't think it would be the same. And I think there's some pride in that like what I do is so unique that it would take a special person to replace that. I also just think as a groundskeeper, you are given immediate satisfaction with your work, or you're given a visual measurement of your work. Like you actually see progress throughout the day on either a game day or a maintenance day of what you've done up until that point. Where working in sales, you might have some numbers that you have to hit, but you truly don't know the impact that you have in your career. The reward of the work isn't tangible the way it is on a game day, after like the stage is set, the national anthem sung, everybody's out there, the field is as perfect as it's going to get for that day. Like that feeling of all of that 10 hours leading up to that point is a tangible thing that you can look out and like feel pride and have a actual reward in that. So I think that's probably the best feeling of what we do, compared to maybe some other careers where you don't actually get the direct reward of, you don't reap the benefits of what you've spent maybe your whole life doing. You might never see where that's gotten some people but groundskeeping is very different. It's very clear if you've done your job right or not. It's hard to hide if you haven't.
Yes. And I also just love like if you were to go into a shop or go wherever the grounds crew is hanging out right after that first pitch or at the end of the day, you see people that have just been in the trenches together almost. It's like they've accomplished something together, and I think I think people can understand like, yeah, a crew is much like a team, but also they're up against a challenge or a battle or an obstacle together almost every single day. And when you can kind of accomplish that together, it really just binds that crew together in a very unique way. I'm seeing some questions come across in the chat. And one of the last one was, what is the off season like? And Leah touched on it a little bit. There is really no off season anymore. And there's so many, especially in baseball. I feel like baseball stadiums and football arenas, but a lot in the minor leagues as well. We have our facilities being utilized for events, whether that's a concert or, Supercross or Monster Jam. That's become a huge element of, the industry and the job. So I guess, without having you guys describe what your off season looks like, how did you guys really have to adapt or gain new skills in order to meet the needs of the facility, outside of the baseball demands or the softball demands? How did you really have to become a better professional and manage a concert that's coming in and out, and managing what a stage does to your field, but also knowing that like these events are inevitable when you have to put on a facility in a stadium that costs a lot of money. So, Nicole, I'll let you start with that one.
Yeah, I think, you become an event manager, and, in school, or if you're focused on pursuing this type of career, you're learning about the science of the turf grass. Everything else you're learning hands-on, you're learning the management style, you're learning what the organization wants as a whole. And I think that takes years to kind of hone in on those skills, and you're still constantly learning. Like, if Camden Yards, for example, never really had concerts, and then all of a sudden now we're doing concerts. So I had to reach out to my counterparts and friends in the industry and say, well, how did you manage this? How did you manage this in a transition zone where bluegrass doesn't fare well in covered up by concert flooring? And what's the worst case scenario, and projecting that to ownership or senior leadership teams. It gets difficult because, like, we work so hard to make this perfect playing surface, and then people want to throw all these events on it that destroy that surface that you spend 100-hour weeks on. It's a learning curve for sure, and I'm still learning it every day and trying my best to understand, that it is an event venue. Every kind of monetary thing helps us in the end, but also, how do you separate that, not just the worrying constantly about, are you providing the best playing surface in conjunction with these events for your team so they can be successful? It's a tough job.
Definitely a delicate balance.
Yes.
But what you hit on is something that we find in the groundskeeping industry a lot too, is that like network of resources. And with social media and other avenues for people to really connect, that's become a really unique way for people to not only share their accomplishments, but share like, hey, we just had all this flooring down on the field. Here's what it looks like 3 days after the fact. Here's what it looks like 7 days after the fact. Here's what we looked like on game day. And Arizona State is one of my favorite accounts to follow. So if you guys ever want, the behind the scenes look into the day-to-days of a college facility, but also just sports field management as a whole, they are a wonderful follow on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, X. But they're really out there kind of not only combating those misconceptions, but just being honest. Like, not every day is a walk in the park, or we don't always have game ready conditions here. It's really about working as a crew to accomplish that. And we could definitely give Aaliyah a lot of credit. They were doing a great job without you there as well with their social media. But I can always tell in the last year when something has the Leah touch, and when something, you could tell that you have been helping with their social media efforts for sure. And I'm a big fan.
We're trying.
You guys do a wonderful job. So Alexa, I saw a question in here about, a mentorship-based industry. And I think you would be great to ask this question because, you didn't come into the job with, a college degree in this field or 4 years of training from another facility. A lot of people even have the route where maybe they were in the golf industry and then they switched over to sports turf, but you really kind of just jumped in. So how have you found that mentorship to really impact your experience? Because you probably had to have somebody, be very patient and willing to share all of the tricks of the trade with you.
I would say like biggest mentors were probably when I worked for the Drillers and when I worked for OU Athletics. So my boss, Gary Shepard, he was always like really patient and just never got angry. He just like always taught me, it's okay if you mess up, and always taught me like what to do. I would say more so with OU Athletics, I got a little more mentorship there just because we covered a lot of sports. So softball, baseball, football. So my boss, Jason Ferries, Tanner Miller, Scott Black, Mason Pewitt, like all of them, they really taught me the tricks of the trade, and I feel like I learned the most there. And again, like always very accepting, knowing that like I don't have a degree in this or anything like that, and just always willing to teach me. So I feel like mentorship in this industry has been like a big deal primarily for me, just because I didn't know anything prior, like coming into it. And like I said, especially at OU Athletics, just given the scope of like sports that we covered. I mean, I only mentioned like football, softball, and baseball, but it was also like soccer and tennis and whatever else you can like think of. So I feel like I got a lot of mentorship there as well.
Very cool. And then to switch gears a little bit, there's a group within the sports field management. We refer to ourselves as the Women in Turf team. And it's this, niche group within an already niche industry. And it's all, just to be resources. But one of our taglines is, see it, be it. And if you can see someone really thriving in the position, it gives those young athletes or young women or just anyone interested in potentially joining the industry, somebody to be like, oh, I could take this same path, or if they're able to do it, I can do it as well. So if you each want to share kind of your see it, be it person, and it doesn't have to be a woman, but who was one of those first people in the industry that you saw being successful in this career that you were like, oh, I think I could do this as well. Leah, do you want to take that one first?
I sure can. Obviously Grant Trenbeath, who was the head groundskeeper in Arizona at the time, who allowed a 18-year-old high school student to come work with him who he didn't know and had no ties to me and was just a stranger, and allowed me into his crew for a couple days. That is somebody who truly was wanting to grow the industry and saw an opportunity in me to educate me and hopefully put me on that path. But I think also Nicole, who's on this call, was probably my biggest one, because her and Heather Nabozny were the only two in baseball at the time when I was going through college that I had to reach out to, that I had seen doing it and being successful in doing it. So those two gave me hope, plus having obviously I've had mostly male bosses, so having the support of the ones that I have had that don't really see me as anybody other than two hands and a brain that can work. Yeah. We always say that the grass doesn't know if it's a man or a woman mowing it. It's just needs to get done. So let's get it done. But it is something that is very niche in our world. There's not very many of us, and it is super cool to see us all work together in that Women in Turf team and support each other in our endeavors, because it is hard in some aspects, but it's still a job. It needs to get done most of the time.
And Leah, I'll ask you another question just as a follow-up to that. How do you toe that line, or how do you keep that balance in, promoting the industry for women and, being a see it, be it person, but also not allowing people to kind of treat you as like a novelty item, not allowing them to really like write the story that you're just living. How do you, become encouraging for women in the industry without them, kind of making a spectacle of it, I guess?
I mean, again, like I said earlier, I kind of let my work speak for itself. I think that says a lot about me, is my attention to detail and the product that I'm giving to players and coaches in the front office, and allowing what I do day to day, how I run my crew day to day, to really do a lot of the speaking for myself. Because you can't argue with the products that I put out most of the time. And I also, as I've gone through as a head groundskeeper, an internship program was like a big thing I wanted to start. And I've only had one female intern, and she's awesome. She's now working for the Nats, Washington Nationals, and she's thriving and doing fantastic. And like, I'm happy to be a mentor and somebody that she could look up to and work under, because it's not very common for a young girl to work for a female head groundskeeper. But I've also had 3 male interns, and I think it's just as important that they walk into an office and see a woman in the head groundskeeper's office and have to learn and understand and respect what I'm saying, just as much as if they were to take a job somewhere else. and that it's all a level play. They see me as the same as when they go to their next job, and a new boss, and hopefully I teach them the right skills and the right things to be successful after that. But it's super important to treat both sides equally and allow both sides to see how a woman would run a field maybe and how a man would run a field. But at the end of the day, as long as the field's playable and it's safe and the players are happy with it, front office is happy with it, then I'm happy with it.
Yes. Very well said. And Nicole, I'll ask you to go back to that first question. You know, as Leah mentioned, you really have been one of the pillars in our industry for not only young women, but just aspiring groundskeepers as a whole. To have such a long career in baseball is such an accomplishment because it's long days, long seasons, longer off seasons. Like, so you really are such a pillar, and I'm sure so many people's, like Leah said, see it, be it, you know, figures. But who really were some of those people for you that when you got ingrained into the industry, people you met along the way that you were like, okay, I want to be them one day?
Yeah, I think, wow, I mean, it's been so long, but my first boss, Al Capitas, you know, for giving me a chance and like, you know, just saying to me, like, you know, if you want to do this, you have to prove yourself. And that's it. And that really just kind of stuck because it was just me against me, you know, to see if I could do it. It wasn't anybody else's input. It was like, can you do this job? Do you want to do this job? Will you be successful? If not in this job, in this industry. So I think that was, you know, the biggest mentor at that time in my life. And then also he introduced me to Heather, obviously, who, you know, sheepishly, like I called and I was like, hey, you know, what's it like? You know, if you're the only female head groundskeeper at that time, you know what I mean? Like, what's it like for you? And she introduced me to other women that were on her crew. Amy Foudy, who was the Michigan State football field turfgrass manager. Like, I mean, there's just so many more that you don't see because this industry itself just really isn't known still. You know, I mean, we have a place, but a lot of people don't know that you can do this type of career in sports, regardless what sport it is. And at the, you know, park and rec level, college level, anything. So, and then another female, Cindy Unger, and I don't know if she's still in the industry, but she was a big role model for me in a way because she worked in Florida operations for a park and rec department, and she was pretty high up. And I was just like, what's this going to look like for me if I don't make it in professional baseball? How is it to be a woman in this type of industry? And her and I had some really good conversations about and how to handle certain things as they come about.
I love that. And Abby McNeil, another, you know,
yes, Abby,
huge,
so many.
Huge pillar in our industry. She always, you know, said that like our industry is made up of magic elves working in the background, which is one of our superpowers, that we're able to set the stage and then the players come on and it's like we don't even want them to have to think about the condition. You just want it to be, you know, natural for them to just take the field. You don't want them necessarily thinking about the conditions because then it might be that they're not perfect. So we're these magic elves, but in a lot of ways that keeps us, or in the past, it kept us from connecting and making that network because a lot of us were, you know, behind the scenes in a sense. And I will say, as a working mom, both you and Abby have been some of my see it, be it's, because in this industry, it's really, you know, it's run by people that don't have to take 12 weeks off to have a child. So it's really nice to have some pillars who, you know, have kids and, you know, have wonderful children. And your son, and also Abby has twins. And she always said her biggest trick in her toolkit was bringing them along with her, in the sense that, you know, don't count them out of tough conversations about what work life might look like for a mom, or what that really entails. So that's just my thank you to you for being a pillar in so many ways in our industry.
Thank you.
Of course. And then Alexa, I'll ask you the same question. You know, who was really somebody in the industry that was your see it, be it moment?
I really have three. So the first is Tanner Miller, my boss from OU Athletics. But I feel like from him, I really learned like work ethic.
Mhm.
And like Nicole was saying, I felt like if you're going to be in this industry, you kind of have to prove yourself and push yourself. So what I learned from him is like if you're tired, go like 10 times harder because he had like a crazy work ethic. And now he is the head of operations for field maintenance at the University of Oklahoma. Also, my boss, Gary Shepard, honestly, one of the best bosses that I've ever had. And again, tying back to the mentorship thing, I wouldn't be where I'm at today, or I wouldn't have the working experience or job experience that I've had if he didn't like teach me, everything that I know right now about field maintenance. And then also Nicole, because literally I didn't know anything about it. I've always loved baseball, and I've always really loved like Camden Yards and thought it looked amazing. So I was kind of doing my research, and I saw Nicole, and I said, well, that is so awesome that she works for them, and maybe one day like that could be me. But even not, like that's super inspiring that she's like a pillar in the industry. So that would be my three. So
I love that. Full circle moment there for Nicole
Wow.
on the call.
Thank you.
And Alexa, are you familiar with like any of the turf programs in high schools?
no.
You should definitely look into that because you're very perfectly situated to potentially start your own turf program. And then you could really become, the see it be it for the next generation. There's a lot of, there's not a lot, there's a few really strong, successful ones. I would point you in the direction of the Brentsville turf program. They're called Tiger Turf. And it's just like, it started off as, I think, an elective where it was like kids could take an elective with he was a past groundskeeper, but then he turned teacher, and it was really like they just started taking care of the actual high school grounds, and it's grown to be this massive thing. And we see a lot of their graduates joining the industry now, and it's very cool. And just even if they don't choose a career in turf, there a lot of them are like the football players taking care of the field that they'll play on Friday night. So it's very cool. You should dig into that a bit.
I should talk to some people at Jenks High School then.
Yes, it really is. And I think Drew has Leah, just give me a head nod. I feel like he's created a curriculum with SFMA to where like other people can replicate starting a turf program like in the high school setting. So you'd have all the tools in your toolkit for it.
All right. I need to look into that then.
Just be, yeah.
I want to teach an elective, so that would be cool.
Yes, very cool. All right, so my next question for you guys is, I do a piece every year called The Pioneers in the Field, and Nicole is actually one of our, she was our member a few years ago as one of our pioneers in the field. And it just is really about people who have either been a trailblazer or created some sort of legacy within the industry. And so there's a lot of different ways that you can create a legacy in our industry, whether it's what I like to call a turf family tree. If you're someone that has all these different groundskeepers that have worked under you, or you're somebody that, there's a gentleman, known as the sod father. So somebody who really, did different things or put different cultural practices in motion. There's a lot of different ways that you can kind of formulate a legacy for yourself. So what do the three of you really hope that your legacy may be one day? What do you really hope resonates with people? Whether it's, as simple as I just want them to be able to look out and see green grass or really nice dirt, or what is it a bigger mission for you? Nicole, I'll let you start with that one.
Well,
You've had practice since you've had this question before.
That's a really big question. I think any kind of legacy I would like to leave is, breaking stereotypes of what a groundskeeper does.
Yeah.
Behind it, how grass, sports turf grass is an integral part of the game in any kind of league. And that, like, I don't know. I mean, just that number one, women in the industry. I would love to, see so many more women get into it, and it's changed drastically since I first started. So I'm excited about that. But definitely leaving the science legacy behind and breaking the stereotype of what a groundskeeper actually does and how we wear many hats. I think that would be what I would want to do. It's hard to sum it up in a
I
short
know it
time
is.
frame.
It's a big one.
Yeah.
But I guess my follow-up to that is another question I had on here. What do you really hope, people through your career and through you being a visible, pillar, what do you really hope people take away knowing about the job, but specifically what people know about the job for women?
I think that, yeah, just like what Leah said and Alexa touched on, that we're just two hands and a brain,
Yep.
we're just like everybody else, slowly. And it's sad that it is so slow that we're breaking these stereotypes of women in male dominated fields. When you see somebody out there that looks like you doing something that you might have a passion for, it means something. And even though we're behind the scenes and quiet, I think it does resonate. But, just talking about this industry, breaking down the stereotypes, educating people that may not understand what we do on a daily basis through avenues like this conference today, or, doing a podcast, or just answering an email, or a message. Like that's kind of what kind of legacy I'd like to leave. Just
I love it.
breaking down the barriers.
And as we call it in the Women in Turf, breaking the grass ceiling.
Yeah. That's great.
So Alexa, I'll phrase that same question to you. What do you really hope, whether it's a lifelong career you have in turf or something like you are doing now, what do you really hope people really get from your work, your legacy as a sort?
I kind of like the same thing, just the fact of breaking these like stereotypes or the grass ceiling. So I think for me, if I could do it, somebody with like no experience at all and come in and like do this job, then I think anybody could do it. I think even after like working for the Drillers, there's been like several girls that I've worked with, as of right now. I know for when I worked for OU Athletics, I was the first girl that they've hired, but they have women now working on that team. So I just want to kind of be an example for them. And then even the fact that I'm African American, like I know there's not like a lot of African American women who, are in groundskeeping. So like I said, if I can do it and I'm somebody that didn't even have a degree in like turf management at all and can go out and have these like wonderful work experiences, then I think anybody could like do it and like kind of breaking those stereotypes a little bit. Because I would make the argument for groundskeeping. Like I feel like I know like we're quiet and we don't like, say a lot, but I think it's super important. I mean, I know that's like we're like a small piece of the game, but kind of like Leah said, like if we're not there, like who's going to get the field ready? Like, is it going to look the same? Is it going to play the same? Like, I think we do like have a big part of the game. So.
Very cool. Thank you. And then Leah, last but not least, that same question for you.
You kind of hinted at it earlier. Well, first of all, everything that Nicole and Alexa said, I will also double down on that. But you hinted at earlier that social media is kind of my thing as a millennial. I enjoy a good Twitter scroll or TikTok or whatever, but I have really found I enjoy, and I also think it's important to start lifting the curtain and expose the wizard behind the Oz and show the world what we do. I think it's super important that like we're breaking, as Nicole said, those stereotypes. And I think the best way to do it is via social media. And also our industry, unfortunately, like in the past few years, we haven't had as many young people wanting to get into it. A lot of colleges that had offered this degree previously now don't, because they're just not getting as many incoming freshmen or people wanting to pursue this degree. So they're just not continuing that option, which is really unfortunate. And like, it's sad for some of these kids that won't get the opportunity to see that this is a career path. And so I'm really trying to change that and be posting it on Instagram or on a TikTok video, hoping that a junior in high school scrolls through it and sees like, oh, that's cool. Like, I didn't know you could do that as a job, or I didn't know that was a degree, and I don't even need a degree to do it. I can just hop on a crew and start learning. And I think that's a really good avenue for me to start exposing what's behind the curtain. As much as we always joke that if you see a groundskeeper on your TV, it's something bad's happened, or normally like no news is good news from a groundskeeper. And that's true. Like, most of the time we do like to be hidden and our work speak for itself. But I think it's also super important that we educate not only our staff and our people in the front office on what we do every day, but the general public, so that they understand when field conditions are less than ideal. I mean, I think we all remember the Super Bowl a couple years ago in Arizona and the controversy over the field then, and there was no true explanation as to what happened, and then the public starts to speculate, and then that groundskeeper doesn't get the recognition he deserves because it wasn't technically him doing it. And it's nice to just allow the truth to be out and us to teach and educate the general public and the front office and our players, and hopefully recruit this next generation to start taking our jobs.
Definitely.
In the best way.
Yes, and so wonderfully said. And that is something that you have always really stood for in our industry, and you're making waves with it. And everyone on this call, that's some way that you can support or help promote Leah's efforts, following her on TikTok or Instagram or X, all of the women here involved, and just help spread that message. And even just you knowing about the career and talking to, the next generation in your life, that this is an option, just moving that needle forward. And I saw on here a little bit about, starting a program and things like that. And those are all things that are, in the works, and we have like different certifications available through SFMA now, like 101 courses that people can take. But I did see another question that was asking about salary ranges. I don't know who would want to take that one, that kind of can break down what that might look like for the next generation. If starting with like maybe a starting position, then assistant, and then like maybe what a head groundskeeper might look like.
Yeah, I can take that one. So for Baltimore, Maryland, it's all going to be situational where you are across the United States, obviously, for a range of salary and price of living, and we all know price of living is just insane right now. But for starting out, like somebody on my crew makes $17 an hour, and that doesn't sound great, but it is overtime and double time in Baltimore. So we work 90 hours by, day 5. So, there is so for a part-time seasonal employee, they could make around 28,000 for that 8-month period. For if you get into maybe an assistant position, you're looking at salary in the 60s, and then a first assistant position, a salary maybe in the 90s, and then head groundskeeper, obviously, hopefully way above that. So that's kind of the general range in my sector of professional baseball.
Definitely.
And Leah might be able to touch on minor league salaries. I'm not too
collegiate.
Collegiate and minor league.
Minor league, we don't have as many people, but head groundskeeper, I was previously making 75,000 in Reno. My assistant was making close to 55, but he was hourly. So he got time and a half after 40 hours worked, which is not hard to do in our industry. 40 hours is half of a week. So there was times where my assistants, both my seasonal and my full-time assistant, were making more than me during season. But of course it all evens out in the wash when we come to the off season. He's working as normal 40 hours again. But It would be anywhere between like 55 to 65 for an assistant job. And then our part-time just game day crew guys are making $15 an hour. At the collegiate level though, I took quite a bit of a pay cut, but I also made there were some other sacrifices that were made so that I could be with my partner here in Arizona. So as an assistant, I'm making 55 at the college level. My boss is probably making 75 what I was making in Reno. College athletics is definitely on the worst side of it right now. I'm seeing it across the board from many people that I know in college athletics, not just sports field managers, but graphic design people, sponsorship people, ticket sales people in college athletics is just not paying as well, because now student athletes are making multi-millions of dollars. And so the support staff just isn't. So that's a new thing that college athletics is having to balance their budgets a little bit differently staffing wise because of the NIL stuff going on. So we'll see how that pans out in a few years. But a lot of full-time positions are salaried because of the hours we work, can sometimes end up saving people money by making us salary. So it just depends where you are and what you're doing. You could be an hourly person and making a ton of money during a season, or just salary, and it all would even out in the wash in these slow seasons.
Yeah. This is definitely like a conversation that trends within our industry is, how do we get this to the top of a priority list for decision makers or higher ups? Because there is a lot of, discourse on, like Leah said, them making somebody a salary when they know it's because they're going to be able to get 40 extra hours out of you, essentially unpaid. So that's definitely discourse within our industry, but also especially in baseball and college athletics, longevity in the career is a really hard to accomplish because so much is asked of a groundskeeper. A game day is sometimes a 16, 18-hour day. And if you've got a 10-day homestand, what does that really look for somebody's longevity in this career? They might be able to make it through that homestand, but what does that look like 3 years into the career, or, just into that season? What does it look like for their mental health? So that's kind of what some of our podcasts in the industry or just our associations are really trying to help become resources for our groundskeepers, because as Leah mentioned, it not only makes it less attractive for people coming into the industry, like they don't even want to dip their toes into that pool if they know that this is something we're up against, but also you see a lot of really great together, because longevity is a really hard thing to accomplish. So not to end on a sour note. But does anybody have any other, I think I tried to touch on it, the majority of the questions I saw come through the chat. But ladies, I really appreciate your time, and we appreciate everybody for joining. I do think I see a hand up. Liz, if you wanted to ask a question.
Yes, it's question is for Nicole. I went to the second Bananas game at the ballpark.
Oh gosh.
And I know you weren't there because you were being honored at Trenton, but did you know that that player was going to light something on fire?
I did, but I didn't know it was going to take place on the infield surface.
I saw it, and when I realized you weren't there, I was like, oh my God, she probably was like panicking.
So the Bananas was fun. It was a great event. Loved it. But as a groundskeeper, you cringe because like they're doing all these dances and twisting and moving on your field in cleats. And it's just like, it's just the stress of getting everything back and ready to go. But from an event standpoint, it brings so many people to the ballpark. And as you were there, like it's such a fun environment and people were just lighthearted and in a great mood. So even though I wasn't there that night, the night before, I was able to experience it, and through my son's eyes, which was, it brought me back down to like, hey, it's just, we're here to fix it. It's going to be fine.
I love that. Yeah, and they're all about the fan first and really bringing people back to the ballpark and how cool their whole phenomenon is. And I will say, anybody else interested in more banana ball talk, we have a whole series that we recently posted on the Groundskeeper chat where we interviewed like 3 different head groundskeepers who just had them at their stadium. So we got their first person point of view on what it was like hosting the Bananas. And then I think I do see one other hand if you'd like to ask your question.
Hi. First of all, I want to thank all of you. We have been working to get a panel like this, and we've had some discussions, and but to have all of you on here today and to hear this important story. The International Women's Baseball Center has said always that we are about preserving and protecting the history and the legacy of all aspects of women in the game of baseball. And this is an extremely important one, and I personally want to thank you. Thank you for all you do on a daily basis, but thank you for being here and showing the rest of us just how important this particular piece of baseball is. And it's an honor to have you guys on here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.